Hello out there and welcome to Ruby's Classic Cooking. Once again, here I am, and today I am baking peanut butter cookies, which I haven't made in a while. And actually my husband came out a little while ago, and he said, "So where are all the cookies?" Because I told him I was going to bake cookies today, and I said, "Well, I haven't made them yet." "Well, get on with it." So I'm going to get on with it. Here I got my nice mixing bowl. And just today I'm not going to use a mixer. I could, but I'm going to just use a wooden spoon and this, because the Purity Cookbook recipes, most of them are designed to use with just a plain wooden spoon and a spatula and a bowl, mixing bowl. This is a good large size, holds about 4 liters, which would be about 8 cups. That's a good size. You can also use like a glass pitcher, measuring pitcher, the heat-proof type, made by Pyrex and Fire King, and Pampered Chef, and they hold about, the big ones hold about 8 cups, and they're a good sized mixing bowl to use for a lot of different recipes. Plus you can use them to measure, which is a good thing. Alright, the first thing I'm going to be doing is preheating my oven at 375, which it's already beeped at me to tell me that it's 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 degrees Celsius. And first things into the bowl are my shortening, which I'm substituting today. I'm not using shortening. Today I'm going to use butter to make my cookies. So in goes my butter, a half a cup of butter. Because after all, it's almost the same price as a half a cup of shortening. And butter is much better when you're baking than shortening, let me tell you. So I've got my butter softened from having been at room temperature for a while. So I'm just going to do that. And I have my trusty Pampered Chef measuring thing for my peanut butter. And I'm measuring out a half a cup. I'm using crunchy today. You can use crunchy or you can use smooth, whichever kind of peanut butter you like, your family likes, or you have in the house, or whatever. So these will be nice peanut butter cookies. And now I'm going to cream these two together, which just means to combine the two ingredients in your bowl until they are integrated into one. It doesn't mean add milk or add cream to the bowl. My sister was unfortunately in school with a partner in home ec who didn't know the difference between that, and they were supposed to cream their butter and sugar together in the recipe. And she said, I turned my back on her for 5 minutes, and when I came back, she had this sloppy mess in the bowl, and I said, what in the world is that? And she said, well, it said to cream the ingredients, and I didn't have any cream, so I used milk. So, needless to say, that was not what she was supposed to do with the recipe, and it really made a mess. I think they ended up having to dump out the ingredients, which probably got them in trouble with the teacher for wasting food. And I probably had to start over, because there's really no way you can fix that kind of an error. But that's how you learn. You make mistakes and you learn from them, hopefully. When you don't learn from them, that's really a tragedy. Good bakers are made, not born. I always believe firmly that if you can read, you can cook. And it's a very creative process, and it can be a lot of fun. Cream now. I have no sign of any butter or any peanut butter. Well, it all looks like peanut butter now, but it's much creamier because all the butter has been, and they look like one thing now. Anyway, now I'm going to add a half a cup of brown sugar, and this is 2/4 cups, so it makes a half a cup, right? 1/4 plus 1/4 equals 1/2. Remember your basic math skills, very important in the kitchen. And here's a half a cup of white sugar. So there's a half a cup of white sugar and a half a cup of brown sugar that goes in here. You see how my brown sugar is keeping its shape, just like I made them out of sand. Well, that's what how your brown sugar should be. That's how tightly you should pack it in the mix. In your measuring, that's how tightly you should pack it in your measuring cup, because it should hold its shape when you drop it into the bowl. Now I'm just going to beat out some of these lumps a little bit, and then I'm going to integrate that together. Oh, it said gradually beat it in. Oops. I just dumped it all in at once. Oops. It just means it's going to be more of a challenge for me to do that, but that's okay. If I was doing this with an electric mixer, it would make short work of this, but I'm doing it the good old-fashioned way by hand, which is something you can do. You know, if you go camping with your family and you want to make something to take with you, something like this is a great idea to take with you, because you can have these in the car for snacks, and you can make little ones or you can make great big ones. And these are better than the ones you buy at Tim Hortons for $1 something a cookie. Last time I bought one, it was $1, and it was like, yeah, this is a pretty decent cookie, but I make better cookies at home. Anyway, I now have my brown sugar and my white sugar mixed into my peanut butter and butter here. So I'm just going to make sure I get those well combined. Give that a little scrape off. And let's just get that done. Okay, great. Now I will get on to the next ingredient, which is, what goes in here next? Let's see now. 1 egg. I'm my grade A white large egg. You can also use an extra large egg, but mediums I never use. You'd almost have to use 2 mediums to get this, to get enough egg in here. There we go. See, this cookbook was written back in the days when Canada was still non-metric. And when they went metric with the eggs, they changed the sizing of everything so that what was considered a grade A large when this cookbook was written is today considered a grade A extra large. So for many years I bought extra large eggs, but I've recently gone to large because I've kind of given it up. Anyway, I also need a half a teaspoon of vanilla. I thought that was a full teaspoon. And that's one of the things I've been making myself. The price of vanilla has gotten to be so expensive in the last few years, and I like to use real vanilla, not pretend vanilla, that I started making my own. And I came across this kit. It's got vanilla beans in it, and you add your own vodka. So split your vanilla beans. You don't need to have a special kit. You just split your vanilla beans, 4 or 5 vanilla beans lengthwise, and fill up your bottle with vodka. And leave them sit, I think it's 6 weeks, and you have to kind of shake them every day. But it does give you vanilla. But if you don't bake very often, just buy some. But I know I was looking at the flyers this week, and locally, let's see, 125 milliliters, which is about a cup of vanilla, real genuine vanilla, was $17.99, and it was $14.99 if you're a member. I'm like, wow, that's pretty pricey for a cup of vanilla. But I guess it all depends on how often you bake. Anyway, so, and I always keep an eye out for things like that when I'm shopping at Winners, because they get things like that in and they're discounted. So there we go. Okay. And there's my egg and my half a teaspoon of vanilla. Stir it in there. And now, what goes in next? Let me see. 1 cup and a quarter of all-purpose flour, which that's what's in here. 1 and a quarter cups of flour. And I have to add to that, sugar. Well, that's, I have to add a half a teaspoon of salt. Now that's another thing I find about this Purity cookbook is was written back in the early 60s, and people seem to need a lot more salt in things than I do. So I'm probably going to add I'm going to add a quarter of a teaspoon of salt to this, because I'm just going to have the amount of salt, because you really don't need that much salt in your recipe, really. Okay, and here's the teaspoon, and I need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Now, this is baking soda, not baking powder, okay? So, there it is in the box, Arm & Hammer here. There's lots of other brands of baking soda, but that's one that I happen to find at my grocery store, so that's the one I have here to use today. I'm just going to stir this around, and right here, and let's see, blend or sift together, blah blah blah, add to the cream mixture and combine thoroughly. So I'm now going to add this to my creamed mixture here. There isn't any other liquid that goes in here. There's no milk, there's no water, there's no any juice that goes in here. So that's a bit different than usual recipe. There's just your flour now goes in here. So there's no liquid to mix here with your flour. It just all goes in together. And you mix this until you've got it all beaten up. And I'm going to use a cookie scoop to make my cookies. And one thing about this, you don't need to grease the cookie sheet, because between the peanut butter and the butter, there's enough oil in this cookie batter to do this thing, okay? To keep it from sticky, keep those cookies from sticking. Now this batter right here will make 2 dozen really large cookies, or you can make a smaller cookie and have 3 dozen cookies. All depends. If you have hungry teenagers, I'd make bigger cookies. If you have preschoolers, or you have, you know, elementary school kids in your household, I'd make smaller cookies. If you're traveling, smaller cookies are good because they aren't going to break up in, you know, when you're taking them with you. If you're taking them to work and they're smaller cookies, well, you can take 2, right? Because they're small, right? These are excellent to take to work. Unless, of course, somebody at work is allergic to peanut butter. So that's been a problem with peanut butter cookies, is that food allergies have been a real problem in the last few years. But fortunately, that seems to be getting to be less of a problem again, as people realize that this is an allergy that they have to do something about in their children, because there's just too many peanuts, too many peanut butter things out there that your child is going to come into contact with. So allergy specialists are doing their best to help kids not be allergic to peanut butter, because you know, kids have to be able to tolerate certain things that are so common as peanut butter. Crunchy peanuts in here, so that's also going to allow for. Okay, there we go. Now you see what that batter looks like. Nice and stiff and but still pretty sticky. So, but oily because of the peanuts, the peanut butter, and the butter in here. So anyway, next time I'm making cookies, maybe I'll make some chocolate chip cookies. What do you think? Does everybody out there like chocolate chip cookies? Yeah. So I might just make some of those. Anyway, so now I'm going to blob these out. I'll bring my cookie sheet over here so I can show you. This is my scoop. It's like an ice cream scoop, but it's not. It's a cookie scoop. So you can use something like this, or you can just, you know, you can just use a large tablespoon to measure out your cookies. So you can use the cookie sheet that I showed you before, stoneware ones, and I really like to use them. They do an excellent job on my cookies. And I'm going to just figure out a level spoonful of this batter, and I'm going to flatten it. Oops, little blobs of dough here. Like I said, this will make about 24 really big cookies, so I'm only going to put 3 across on my cookie sheet. And I'm gonna put those in the oven. Like I said, my preheated 375 or 190 degrees Celsius oven. And I am going to be cooking those for, let me see, 10 to 12 minutes. So I'm going to probably put those on for 12 minutes. And while those are in the oven, I'll fill my other cookie sheet with cookie dough. I forgot to show you that I was flattening them with a fork. So there you go. I started out in big, like, baseballs like that, and one just tried to escape off my cookie sheet. There, see? And I'm just going to flatten them with a fork. Just boom, boom, boom. If they're smaller, you can just do one squish with your fork, but when they're bigger like this, you just kind of give them a little mash with a fork. Multiple times. There you go. Now they're all nice and flattened and ready to go in the oven. Okay? 1 dozen. Beautiful peanut butter cookies. And I have another 8 to put in there, so that makes 20 out of this batch. And believe me, this cookies did not cost me $20 to make, even with a half a cup of butter. Let's get these off of my pan here. Onto my cooling rack. See my nice cooling rack with the nice little holes in it. This. And then this is the kind you want to look for. They're strong and they will hold your cookies, even if they're small cookies, without having them slide between the holes or fall off the edge or whatever. So for baking, this style of cookie rack has no equal, let me tell you. Improve your baking, sometimes you need better tools. And how long did that take? You know? And I didn't have any special tools, or not really any expensive tools or equipment. Just a mixing bowl, wooden spoon, and a few simple ingredients. And look at that, I went from flour and sugar and eggs and stuff to delicious peanut butter cookies, which I'd pick one up and show you, but it would fall apart in my fingers. Probably burn my fingers too, because it's still 375 degrees. So anyway, gonna get rid of this cookie rack, and once these cookies have cooled off, we'll be having delicious peanut butter cookies for dessert tonight. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my video. Have a great day, and I hope you'll come back and see my next video on Ruby's Classic Cooking. Bye for now.